Okay, Margaret Atwood. She is our next later 20th century slash contemporary author, and the work of hers we read this week is the short story called Rape Fantasies. Yes, that's like an oxymoron, right? So you're not gonna probably understand the meaning of that title till you read the short story and you see exactly what it means. But we talk about it a little bit in the lecture too. If you look at the printed out lecture, there is a photo, of course. I forgot to mention that with Lucille Clifton when I was talking about her. If you look in the printed out lecture, there is a lovely photo of Lucille Clifton. You can check out what she looks at like modern day garb. You can see, she's clearly from, the early or sorry, the later 20th century slash contemporary times. And there are many links for Lucille Clifton, including Poetry Foundation links, analytical essays on Lucille Clifton's poem that we read to my last period. That's a link. So you might want to read those. That's kind of interesting if you'd like to know more. There's an NPR interview about Lucy or with Lucille Clifton herself. So that's really fun to hear the author talk in her own words. There's a YouTube clip featuring Lucille Clifton reading her own poetry at the 2008 Dodge Poetry Festival, and there are YouTube links that are from an hour-long segment. So if you watch all three of them, that'll be the whole segment on Lucille Clifton with an introduction to her poetry, followed by Lucille Clifton discussing and then reading her own poetry. All right, so I forgot to mention that in the Lucille Clifton lecture, but I thought I'd touch base now on that, since I wouldn't have any more time to add that to the lecture because it went the full 15 minutes. All right, so now on to Margaret Atwood. Here we go. Lovely picture of Margaret Atwood in the printed out lecture. And you can see modern times. Obviously, she looks older because she's older now. Yeah, she's definitely older. She's um, yeah, 82 years old. There we go. Anyway, um, there are links in the printed out lecture. There's a website, poets.org. Um, there is a link with an article written by Margaret Atwood herself for The Atlantic, in which she discusses the Supreme Court's recent Roe v. Wade overturn in relation to the Gilead setting of her immensely popular speculative fiction novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Then there's a Margaret Atwood website of her own, and then an official website from the publisher of Margaret Atwood's recent works, Margaret Atwood Society website. An NPR interview with Atwood is a link in the printed out lecture discussing the role of science in her writing. So that's kind of interesting since she is a speculative fiction author, which embraces both science fiction and fantasy, or the what if society that is different from our own in one way, that is not our current reality, or one way or another, rather, or many ways. Then a YouTube link, watching an interview with Margaret Atwood on the creative process of her writing, and then a YouTube link with an interview with Margaret Atwood on why we tell stories. That's kind of interesting. And then I've got the IMDb listing that shows the many adaptations of Margaret Atwood's works. So, that's fun to look up, especially if you like to watch filmed versions of literary works. It's kind of neat to see how they're adapted, right? Because it's never going to be exactly the same. It's a different medium. So obviously there are changes that will be made, and it's interesting to see or to analyze at least the decision-making process that goes into the different choices that obviously a film version would have to make, to bring that literature into the visual medium of film. All right, Margaret Atwood. She's a Canadian. She was born in 1939 in Ottawa, Ontario, and grew up in Ontario and Quebec. So being born in 1939, that's a long time ago, right? Yeah. So obviously, she's led quite a long and full life. Her father performed entomological research, that's research with insects, in other words. She decided to become a writer at the age of 16, actually. Her undergraduate career at the University of Toronto, that's obviously in Canada, Toronto, culminated with the publication of her first book of poetry, Double Persephone. after which she earned a master's degree at Radcliffe College in the United States, and she did doctoral work in Victorian romance at Harvard University in the United States. Both of those two schools are in Massachusetts. Margaret started teaching and continued writing thereafter. She also married and divorced Jim Polk and later settled down with now husband and fellow novelist Graham Gibson and later daughter. Margaret continues to live in Canada, which contributes themes of survivalism to Margaret's works. Margaret considers survival of prime importance to Canadians because they deal with such like cold and harsh living conditions. Most of Canada's population is in the bottom border of Canada where it's, warmer to live, and the people who live above that deal with very harsh living conditions, lots of snow, lots of frigid temperatures and wind. And, we're not talking cell towers everywhere and internet, it's more of a survivalist mentality up there to survive against the harsh climate and nature itself. And also maybe isolationism, because there aren't a lot of people that live in those realms. Even when you get down lower in Canada, unless you're right along the border, a lot of that is much less populated than the United States. So there's a lot of survivalist themes running through her works. All right, so this theme of survival has, in fact, formed the basis of many of her characters' wills to rise above harsh or challenging circumstance. Atwood's novel, The Blind Assassin, won the prestigious Booker Prize in 2000. That is the prize that is given out annually by the United Kingdom and anybody part of the Commonwealth of the UK, the United Kingdom. So that's like a lot of the former colonies like Canada, Australia, countries like that. While Atwood's earlier novel, The Handmaid's Tale, discusses gender and sexuality in terms of a futuristic society where only some women can bear children, and those women must serve as concubines and conceivers for those who cannot. You may know that novel from its runaway hit Hulu adaptation starring Elizabeth Moss, running from 2017 to 2022 so far. Atwood's 1996 novel, Alias Grace, also formed the basis of the same titled 2017 television series called Alias Grace, right? Yes. So in 2016, Atwood, along with co-creator / illustrator Johnny Christmas, even started a graphic novel series called Angel Catbird, detailing the adventures of Strig Felidas, a superhero mutant with cat and bird attributes. So she really has run the gamut, right, of the literary industry out there, writing, all things from novels to, collaborating for television series and short stories and graphic novels. So she's quite the writer. And poetry too. Dovetailing with Atwood's concerns for survival amidst challenge and austere circumstances, the short story that we read for class this week, titled Rape Fantasies, published in 1977, quite a provocative title, but it actually details transformative female fantasies that enable women to survive in an otherwise hostile environment. So these rape fantasies work as metaphor in the story, okay, and rape itself is a bit of a metaphor for the harsh and hostile environment that women can encounter in the world and the ways they deal with it and the strategies they use to confront and overcome. All right, so I turn you over to the anthology to read more about our fascinating writer, Margaret Atwood, her works, and the one that we read in particular this week, Rape Fantasies. All right, enjoy your reading. Thanks.